Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. In the middle of the forest one would think that it would be peaceful. But that is not the case. Two people were in a small clearing fighting. The clash of metal and occasional yelps of pain echoed through the forest. Beyond the forest there was, or rather, used to be a village. Now only rubble and corpses remain. There were few still alive, maybe 100 at the most left from the thousands that once were there. Friends, comrades, teammates, loved ones, all lying on the ground bloodied and lifeless. Death lingered in the air as the final enemy went down. The people who were still alive but severely injured turned to look at what once was their village, their home. Konoha was no more. Orochimaru had succeeded in that, but he would not live to feel the pride for long. Uzumaki Naruto, along with Tsunade, Jiraiya, and quite a few Anbu, were still fighting. The final battle was about to be won. Orochimaru was tired, out of energy and out of options. Or so they thought. I'll make you pay for what you've done. I will you right now myself. Naruto yelled as he charged to finish the guy off. The snake smirked and subtly went through hand seals. When he finished he made a big circle with his arms. What appeared to be a black hole popped into view in the place where he had gestured. Wow, what's happening? Naruto began to panic. If I'm going down, I'm taking all of you with me. The snake yelled before slumping over. All the people behind him held tight to a tree. However, Naruto was too close to the black hole and began to move forward. He grabbed hopelessly at the dirt, making scratch marks, but it was in vain and he ended up being pulled in. Naruto. Almost all the people yelled. The hole closed, leaving the people one more life to mourn over, amidst all the other lost life. Naruto was in the strange hole. First everything was black, which seemed to be absorbed up by red, and then everything went white as Naruto saw a blinding flash of light. He closed his eyes, trying to shield them. After the pain that felt like he was being ripped apart stopped, he opened his eyes. He wasn't too sure where he was at first, but then, once his eyes came into focus, he realized where he was. In his apartment, on his bed, in his room. He stood up and looked out the window. He saw Konoha intact, and there were only 4 faces on the mountain. He also noticed that he could rest his head perfectly on the window sill. Okay, now I'm confused. What the hell happened, Ned? Naruto yelled to himself. He went to the bathroom and as he was washing his hands he noticed himself in the mirror. He saw his hair was so short. He had grown it out long ago so he could look more like his father. He was stopped from his pondering when he heard snickering. You got something to do with this, Fox? Naruto asked the laughing Kitsune. Actually, yes. That jutsu that the snake bastard used was a portal. It was meant to send you to the beginning of time in hopes that you would bead, since the planet was not yet created. Great. So where are we then, Well, I couldn't let you go floating around in an endless abyss, so I altered things. The red I saw then was you, then. Yep, and congrats on turning 12, again, Kyuubi snickered. You sent me back to the time when I was 12. Are you serious? So I'm the dead last again. Gee, thanks. Wrong. You've still got all the power you had when you were 23. Oh, and you might wanna hide your foxy accessories. Your classmates would freak if you came like that. But everybody knows I combined with you when I almost goaded and tried to save Sasuke. True, but that hasn't happened yet, and all your little friends are alive and well. For now anyway. So Sasuke, Kiba, Tenten and all the others who Orochimaru'd are still alive. Stupid fox, I could kiss you. I'd prefer it if you don't. Remind me to let you go hunting near a rabbit hole later. That's the kind of thanks I'll take, the fox said happily, licking its lips. Naruto looked at the clock. Only 6 o'clock. He had an hour and a half yet before he needed to graduate. He thought about how well things were for him when he was older. Now, he wasn't even a genin when he was actually an Anbu. He sighed. Now I have to wait another 10 years to meet my son, he thought as he hid his foxy accessory. Oh yes, Naruto had been married, and was expecting a son or daughter in 8 months. The wife, of course, was Hinata. He had helped her to boost her confidence throughout the years. Now he was back to square one with her. He figured he'd go out and do some shopping while he waited for the time to pass. He ate more than just instant ramen now that he knew how to cook. He went and counted the money in his wallet before getting dressed and leaving. As he left, he compared how underfurnished his apartment was, compared to his house in the future. He looked at his hands, deciding to get some gloves to hide his claws. At least he could wear his old favorite clothes. He walked to a ninja clothing store and went in to look around. He quickly found what he needed. A pair of gloves that had steel on the back of the hand and at the tips of the fingers, sewn in between the material. That way, he wouldn't accidentally claw anything by grabbing onto it. The metal part on the fingertips even swung back if he needed his claws. He grabbed them and went to the cashier, who didn't even look up from the magazine he was reading. He punched in the exact price and, when Naruto gave him the money, he took only the right amount without even looking up. Naruto left, happy not to be overcharged, as he knew he used to be when he was little. He even heard the man tiredly say, "Have a nice day, please come again." He then decided to get a lot more groceries, since he had plenty of money to spare. As he walked into the store, the girl at the counter was asleep. Naruto walked in and got everything he needed. He went over to the girl and gently woke her. She drowsily opened her eyes, blinked, then began ringing things through, head still resting in her arms. She gave the total that showed on the screen, not even adding things to it. Naruto gave her the money and happily went on his way. Sheesh, if I had known that people were like this in the mornings, I would have done all my shopping this early. Naruto quickly went home to put the food away, gloves already on, then ran out towards the academy training ground. He still had a half hour before he needed to be there, so he decided to get in a small workout. A half hour and many destroyed trees later, the warning bell rang. Naruto smirked as he walked into class. This time round I'll show them who the dead last is. More and more people came in the 15 minutes after the warning bell. All of them seemed nervous just to be there, let alone take the actual test. Sasuke came in and sat beside Naruto, who instantly smirked. Sasuke scoffed. What are you so happy about? We all know you're going to fail. Oh, I'm always happy. Ah, Sasuke, just as I remember him, he's even got the stick way up his today. Wow, it's a real honor. He grunted in reply. Naruto just smirked even wider. Let's see if we can't give that stick a big pull, or push, whatever happens, happens. Yes, I'm always happy. In fact, welcome to my happy world. Great. Just what I've always wanted. I'll look for an apartment right away. Sasuke replied sarcastically. Naruto grinned. Good. And now that you're all nice and settled, you can get your shit and leave. Only people who smile are allowed in my happy world, he said cheerfully. Sasuke's eye twitched. There's something different about him. Sasuke thought, staring at the blonde idiot. Sasuke noticed the gloves and asked with a snotty tone, "What's with the gloves, Dobi?" Naruto looked to his right and smirked. Why? He asked in a childish way. Because. Why? I asked a question, idiot. Why? 'Cause that's how smart people gather information, not that you'd know anything about that. Why? 'Cause you're an idiot. Why? You were probably dropped on your head as a baby. But only you can truly answer that. Why? Because I don't know why you're an idiot. Sasuke thinks he's got the upper hand because he's insulting me, but he'll get annoyed soon, Naruto thought, then continued with yet another, why? Will you just shut up? Why? Arg. There was a moment of silence. Why? It was then that Iruka came into the classroom. He noticed all the girls staring at Sasuke while throwing the occasional glare at Naruto, who was an amazing fangirl deterrent with his annoyingness. Heh heh, this'll be a cinch. What kind of Anbu would I be if I couldn't pass the Genin exam? I'll pass everything easy, Naruto thought, turning his attention to Iruka. Okay, the Genin test will be composed of primary weaponry, meaning how well you can use the basic weapons, a test on theory and history, an obstacle course, and primary jutsus. You will be asked to perform one of the basic jutsus you have learned this year. You need to pass 3 out of the 4 tests to pass. Any questions? Iruka waited to make sure no one raised their hand. Okay, good luck to all of you, he said as he passed out the test. Naruto instantly paled at it. Damn, he thought, looking at it. Oh yes, only Anbu in history to fail part of a Genin exam. The fox then proceeded to burst out laughing. Naruto sighed and wrote down what he hoped were the answers. After 30 minutes he got up and handed the paper in. Iruka took it and quickly marked it. Good job Naruto, you passed. Thank God. Pride intact. You got a 55 inches, Iruka said happily. Then again maybe not. Kyuubi burst out laughing again. Naruto put on a big grin and walked back to his seat to wait for the other parts in the exam. He easily aced the weapons test, which involved 10 shuriken, 10 kunai, and 20 targets. He hit the right targets and even threw all 10 shuriken at once to show off. He then grabbed the 10 kunai, threw them, and went on his way. All hitting the bull's eye. The obstacle course was also easy, although he needed to go at it in a slow jog. The jutsu he had to do, of course, was the bunshin. He was up after Sakura, who completed it by creating 4 clones. Still can't create those things to save my life. Simple stuff, oh no, but hard stuff, hell yeah. Well, Naruto, could you create a minimum of 3 clones for us please? Mizuki asked. Don't worry, Naruto, even if you fail this, you still will pass overall. Iruka said, knowing clones were his worst. Behind Naruto, Sasuke smirked knowingly. Ha, the idiot will fail, Sasuke thought as he saw Naruto take his stance. He easily went through the hand seals. Iruka, noticing the seals were different, raised an eyebrow. Naruto stopped on a cross seal and behind him about 20 poof sounds were heard. The few students who were still in the classroom turned to look. There were Naruto clones in all the seats at the desks, all grinning happily. There were a few around near the original. Mizuki chuckled. Just what you've always wanted, Iruka. A class full of Narutos. Iruka's expression was caught somewhere between putting his head through a wall or running over and hugging Naruto. Sasuke stared at the Naruto closest to him. He pushed him out of the way, wanting to upstage him. When his hand made contact, he smirked, thinking he'd found the real one. He then punched it on the arm on hopes of getting a yelp of pain and also making him move. A popping noise was heard and the clone disappeared in a poof of white smoke. The hell? He asked no one in particular. Do I pass? Asked Naruto, grinning at the confused Sasuke as he dispelled the rest of the clones. Yeah, you pass. Wasn't that Kage Bunshin though? Iruka asked quietly. Naruto nodded. Okay, then, who's next? Iruka gave a look that said, I'll talk to you later. Sasuke went next and managed to create as many as Naruto, but still didn't understand what it was he had done. That clone was solid, it wasn't a normal one, Sasuke thought to himself as he left to the other classroom behind Naruto to wait to get their headbands. Naruto sat in an empty seat and waited. A few minutes and many angry glares from Sasuke later, Iruka announced that they would all need to meet back at the academy tomorrow to be put on their three-man teams and meet their Junin instructor. They then were called up one by one to receive their headbands. Naruto was called up last and Iruka untied his own headband and gave it to Naruto. "I'm proud of you, Naruto. You're finally a ninja," Iruka said happily. "One good thing about being 12 again. I can act upon impulse." Naruto jumped at Iruka and swung his arms around his neck. However, the momentum made them both fall backwards over the desk and ended up lying on the ground. Once they got back, Iruka placed a hand on his shoulder. "How about I treat you to ramen? You can tell me how you learned Kage Bunshin." Naruto grinned and went back to his seat in the middle row. "Dobi," Sasuke muttered from behind. "I heard that Sasuke bastard." Naruto yelled at Sasuke, who was seated at the very back. "Oh, how nice it feels to once again obey the impulse and not have to worry that people are actually expecting me to think before speaking. Yes, anyway, congratulations to all of you who passed and we'll see you tomorrow," Iruka said. All the students began to leave. Naruto waited for Iruka to finish talking to Mizuki, glaring at the traitor, though he didn't seem to notice. Iruka signaled for him to wait outside, so he did. The first thing he did was look for Hinata, but when he found her, she was with her father. He instantly went the other way. Her father never liked him much. The sun was just beginning to peek its head over the horizon. The birds had begun their dawn chorus. In the apartment of Uzumaki Naruto, the dawn chorus had a lead singer. Beep, 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 beep. However, Naruto did not like this particular singer. Beep, beep, crash. Anime and manga. Ah, the broken alarm clock chorus. It's not truly morning without it. Naruto rolled out of bed onto the floor with a thud. "Damn single bed," he mumbled as he began to stretch. As he went to the bathroom, the mirror caught his eye. He could see two red-orange fox ears poking out from the top of his blonde mess of hair. There was also a long tail swaying carefree behind him. Genjutsu must have gone off during the night, he said to himself as he yawned. Yeah, when you're sleeping you can't concentrate on it, so it disappears. This could pose a problem if you want to hide the foxy accessories from your team on long missions, Kyuubi lectured. I'll just bring a one-man tent. You also might want to get your pants on. Oh, Naruto said, realizing his pajama bottoms were still down around his ankles. How he managed to walk so far without tripping he couldn't understand. Then again, he couldn't understand anything in the morning. Naruto was never a morning person. It usually took him about 5 to 10 minutes to fully wake up. He went to his closet and started searching through his clothing. With a loud, ha! In triumph he held up a pair of black pants with an orange stripe down the sides of the legs. The Hokage had gotten them for him as a present. Why he hadn't worn them, he couldn't remember. He also pulled out a black t-shirt, then got dressed. He tied his signature orange jacket around his waist. He made some toast to eat for his breakfast, replaced the genjutsu, and was out the door by 7. He quickly made his way to the academy with only one thing on his mind, Hinata. As he got to the academy he went past an arguing Ino and Sakura, who pretended to ignore him. He went straight to where Hinata was seated. She noticed he was coming her way and her cheeks instantly turned crimson. Hello and Naruto, I'm glad we both passed, she said so quietly Naruto could barely hear her. Yeah, me too, he replied happily. Hinata realized he replied and turned a deeper shade of red. So Hinata, are you doing anything tonight? She instantly froze upon the question. No, she said shakily. Well, maybe we can do something together tonight? Naruto asked happily. Like a date? She asked, surprised. Sakura and Ino had stopped arguing and were watching the scene attentively. No, not like a date, a date. How about dinner? Pick you up at the academy at 8. Naruto said. If she gets any redder she's bound to pass out duo all the blood in her face, the resident demon commented. Why yes. Hinata screeched, then fell backwards, passing out. Naruto grabbed her and gently leaned her forward onto the desk. She was still bright red, but now it looked like she was sleeping on the desk. Oi, Naruto, what did you do to her? Kiba asked as he came closer. Naruto then realized that everyone was looking at him. Even Sasuke turned to raise an eyebrow. Naruto rubbed the back of his head nervously. I just asked her out, and then she fainted. At least she said yes. Kiba came over and slapped him on the back. Good job on getting your first date. Naruto grinned. Akamaru yipped to his master. Hey, you do smell different. Did you spend the night in a fox's den or something? Kiba asked while patting the little dog on the head. Huh, why? Naruto asked nervously. Well, normally you have a small fox scent on you, but today it smells stronger. You got a new pet. Yeah, something like that. Iruka stepped in and cleared his throat to get everybody's attention. Well, then, take your seats. First off, I'd like to say Mizuki won't be joining us due to an unfortunate accident. His voice trailed off. Idiot must have gotten caught trying to steal the scroll, Naruto thought. Anyway, I will announce your 3-man squad and the Junin instructor you'll be paired with. Much the same happened as in the previous timeline. I can't believe I'm stuck with Naruto. Arg. Well, at least I'm with Sasuke. Boo Naruto yay Sasuke. Cha. Sakura thought as they went down to the room they were assigned to meet their Junin instructor. They're both idiots. This 3-person team is too many, Sasuke thought. Naruto was, however, a bit sidetracked. No, that's too mild. I want something huge. How about a series of traps? Yeah, all leading him from one prank to another. He'll never know what hit him. God, I love being young again. This led Naruto to laugh out loud evilly, along with the fox, but only Naruto heard him. Naruto's bout of evil laughter made his teammates give him a weird look. Not that he noticed, as he was laughing evilly at the ceiling. Great. I'm stuck with someone who should be in a padded room, Sasuke thought as he rolled his eyes. Memo to self. Help Naruto seek mental help, Sakura thought. As they waited in the room, time went by and the two became more and more interested in what Naruto was doing. Sakura was the first to cave in. Naruto, what is it you're doing, exactly? She asked in an annoyed tone. Teaching the teacher a lesson on being late, Naruto replied, not even turning to look at Sakura. Right. So where are you taking Hinata tonight? Out for ramen, Sakura asked going into girly mode. Don't know and no, Naruto replied as he continued working. You're not taking her for ramen? She asked, surprised. No. But do you know a good place to get scented candles? Lavender and lilac, Naruto asked, finally looking up from what he was doing. Hinata loved lilacs. He even used them when he proposed to her. Flashback. Naruto, where are you taking me this time? Asked a giggling Hinata. Anime and manga. Somewhere really special. No peeking, and that means not using Byakugan, either, Naruto said, leading the blindfolded Hinata up to the top of the Hokage monument. Are we there yet? Hinata asked impatiently. Hang on a sec. Naruto yelled as he let go of her shoulders. He ran off about 5 meters, then came back. Okay, you can take off the blindfold now. Naruto said happily as Hinata reached up to the blindfold. She blinked, getting her eyes used to the light. A tree came into focus, then she began to look around, wondering where they were. She noticed a cliff to her right and began to approach it. She gasped out at what she saw. There down in the field were lilacs. but some were cut down, exposing the green stems among the purple. The cut-down flowers had a message, plain and simple. Hinata, will you marry me? She almost screamed out from sheer delight of it as she read the message. She turned to see Naruto, a few feet away down on one knee, holding a ring with 3 diamonds on it up towards her in one hand, and a big bouquet of lilacs in the other. They were from the ones he cut down to spell the message. He was smiling happily. She couldn't contain her joy and ran at Naruto with her arms open. Yes. Yes. Of course I will. She yelled so loud that almost all of the village could hear her. She could out-yell Naruto if she wanted to. Hey, 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 wait, Naruto yelled, stopping Hinata in mid-lunge. Hinata was confused at what he was doing, but then again, he was still the most surprising ninja. Naruto got up off his knee, walked over to his fiancée, took her hand, and slipped the ring on her finger. He then walked back to where he was, put down the bouquet, then turned to face Hinata. Okay, continue, he said happily. She then began her lunge anew, clamping her arms around his neck. I love you, she whispered happily through her tears of joy. I love you too, and will always, Hinata, he whispered back. They then kissed each other, knowing they would be together forever. End flashback. Store downtown that sells all kinds of stuff like that, Sakura said. Ah, thanks. Naruto smiled, then went back to the paper he had. Sakura went back to her seat to wait for the sensei to come. Naruto rolled up the scroll he was writing in, then got up and went to the back of the classroom. He came forward with a metal bucket and placed it atop the door carefully before going to sit back down beside his teammates. You idiot, if he's a Junin, he's not going to fall for such a stupid trap, Sakura said, and raised her fist to hit Naruto on the head when someone came in. The man opened the door, causing the bucket to fall on his head with a clunk. Naruto began laughing. Sakura gasped. Cha. God. I am. Inner Sakura raised an eyebrow. The man turned towards them, bucket still on his head. Well, my first impression. I hate you all, he said cheerfully. Feelings mutual about your lateness. Naruto said. Right. I'll meet you all on the roof, he said, trying to pull the bucket off only to find it firmly stuck. Naruto, did you put glue in there? Sakura asked. Yeah. Something like that. As Sasuke and Sakura turned to leave, Kakashi finally got the bucket off his head. He was glaring at Naruto. That brat used chakra to stick this thing to my head. If this is the dead last, then that Sasuke kid must be high Chunin, he thought. Come on. Don't be late, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto yelled as he ran off. Anime and manga. I didn't tell him my name yet, Kakashi said as he poofed up to the roof. His 3 students were already there. Okay, so tell me your likes, dislikes and hobbies, things like that, Kakashi stated. Well, how about you go first to show us? Sakura asked. Alright, my name is Hitaki Kakashi. I have no interest in telling you my hobbies. I also have no ambitions to tell you my dreams. I like things and I also dislike things too. Okay, next, he said happily. Wow, me too. We have so much in common, Naruto said, causing everyone around him to do a face fault. Okay, ladies first, Kakashi said. Alright, I am Haruno Sakura. I like, she turned to Sasuke. I hope, turned to Sasuke again. I hate, she miserably turned to Naruto. Sakura fell silent and looked as if she was throwing a silent hissy fit. Okay, next you. He pointed to Naruto. Okay, well, following your example, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. I like a lot of things. I dislike mainly people who bully others and people who are late. He stressed the late part, making Kakashi cringe. My ambition is to fulfill my dream everyone already knows. my hobbies are well known too. Great. Okay, now you. He pointed at Sasuke. Naruto jogged along the streets, heading to the store Sakura had described, though he was only vaguely paying attention. He found the store, though, when he remembered her saying something about a big pink-purple sign. He could tell he was being followed, but paid it no mind, knowing that if he did, they would really get suspicious. He found the 2 candles he wanted and bought them at a fairly reasonable price, adding in 2 holders as well. The cashier was only a few years older than him, so she didn't know of his legend, and so tried to overcharge him. As he exited, he could feel his stalkers and sighed. This will be a long day. He went over a mental checklist of what he thought he would need for his date. Aha! He yelled out, spinning around facing the tree Sasuke was in. I knew I forgot to get something, Naruto said as he walked to the nearest food stand, trying not to laugh as he felt the tension from his stalker drop. Do you sell meats here? Naruto asked the vendor. Yeah, how much and what kind do ya want? The man asked with a bit of an accent. About a 3-pound roast, Naruto replied. The man nodded and handed the meat to him. Naruto thanked and paid him, then put the meat in his bag, before continuing on his merry way. He went to a local fruit vendor and began to browse the citrus fruits. The vendor came out. Sasuke and Sakura were on the roof of a nearby house, Sakura not even caring that Sasuke wasn't talking to her at all. She was just happy to be near him without him pushing her away. They looked down to where Naruto was looking at the citrus fruits. Hey, you sell limes? Naruto asked when the vendor came over. Yes, but not to you. The vendor yelled, attracting the people's attention. Nope, not a friendly vendor. Naruto sighed and began to walk away. You little demon brat. Don't turn your back on me when I'm talking to you. The angry man yelled. Yeah, you should be more polite. Someone yelled. Yeah, others agreed. Someone threw a tomato at him, which he dodged, but he waited until the last minute to do so, making it look like he dodged by pure luck. Get him, shouted someone from the crowd. Immediately, people started throwing things at him from all angles. Naruto dodged all of them easily, which seemed to anger the people even more. When he saw being thrown, it gave him an idea. Oh no, not the S and limes. Naruto yelled at the top of his lungs. He could hear the fox snickering as the people began to throw the sour fruits. Naruto jumped up and grabbed about 10 S and 10 limes before taking off. Sasuke and Sakura were not only confused but startled that Naruto had gotten away without any produce on him. Hey, he said to himself as he ran off, leaving Sakura and Sasuke to ponder where he went. When Naruto got back to his apartment, he looked at the time. Almost 6:45. Great. Gotta hurry. Naruto grabbed a pan, turned on the oven, and began to slice up the S. When the oven was fully heated, he inserted the roast, along with the wedges and a few spices he found laying around. He then began peeling potatoes and sticking them in boiling water. While the potatoes were cooking, he began to work on 2 small salads. Once those were done, he checked the things in the oven. They still needed a few more minutes, so he went to find a blanket or sheet of some sort. Once he found a decent one, he ran back to the kitchen, blanket waving behind him. He threw the blanket on the table and put the plastic salad bowls on the blanket. Iruka was always giving him plastic dishes, so he always had enough. He found the bowls, lids and tightly placed them on. When the potatoes were done, he quickly mashed them up, added what he needed, put them in another bowl, and placed the mashed potatoes beside the salads. The roast was done with only 15 minutes to spare. He grabbed 2 sodas out of the fridge and the candles and holders. Quickly he placed everything on the blanket, folded it up, and tied it. He made sure it was tight before bolting out the door, almost forgetting to lock it. And yes, he turned off the oven. Naruto arrived at the academy at 7:59, panting. Hinata was there at the gate, pushing her fingers together nervously. Hinata. He called out to her, causing her to flinch. She began to walk over to him, not too sure if she was dreaming or not. Hello NN Naruto, she said nervously once she got to him. Sorry, I hope you weren't waiting too long. Naruto asked. No, only F5 minutes. Naruto nodded and began to lead her out into the forest. It was a full moon tonight. He led her to a small pond that had a waterfall spraying mist everywhere, which twinkled and shone in the moonlight. Naruto crouched down and began to untie his pack, and set it all out while Hinata was distracted by the scenery. Up in a nearby tree, Sasuke and Sakura were looking for the blonde. After he took off without a trace earlier, the two had thought he might have come to the forest to train. Well, actually, Sasuke thought and Sakura just followed. They both saw a small glow of light and went towards it. There in the clearing stood Naruto lighting the second candle. He had food spread out all around. Hinata shakily sat down, and Sakura resisted the urge to let out a girlish squeal. Okay, we'll start with the salad, okay? Naruto asked, opening the containers and handing her a soda. Hinata nodded and began to eat. Lilacs, I wonder how he knew. Maybe he really likes me too. At the thought Hinata blushed. Now, let's see if we can't bring her out of her shell. Can I have the rabbit yet? You promised yesterday. The fox began to whine. Fine, Naruto sighed. Hinata, I'll be right back, I need to go to the bathroom, Naruto stated as he got up. Why are those two still following me? Naruto went far enough away that he should be out of earshot of the others and began doing seals. When he got to the last one he slammed his hand down and smoke appeared. When it cleared there stood Kyuubi. Although he only had one of his tails, he was still as tall as Naruto's waist. There you go, enjoy. Oh, and please don't bring a dead carcass back with you, okay? Naruto whispered and turned to go back to Hinata. When he got back he saw Hinata still shyly nibbling on the salad. Naruto sat down again and began to eat. Hinata seemed to blush more and more with each bite. After they were both done with the salad Naruto gave her the mashed potatoes and some of the roast. Hinata thanked him for it and slowly began to take her first bite. Wow, this is really good. Hinata said, louder than expected. She began to shovel the food in even faster than Naruto. She stopped halfway through, realizing what she had done. I'm glad you like it, he said. She looked up at Naruto as if to apologize, but he just had a happy smile on his face. She had globs of food everywhere below her nose. A small glob of potatoes fell off her and onto the grass. Now there's the girl I married. Naruto thought. Naruto then began to laugh, causing Hinata to blush. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Naruto stopped laughing and handed her a napkin. Don't apologize, I like seeing you with more confidence. Sasuke was making disgusted faces at the couple. He was like a little kid watching his parents kiss. Sakura was the opposite. She had to hold her hand over her mouth to keep from awing. Who knew Naruto could be so romantic? She thought. The only reason Sasuke didn't run from Sakura and her scariness was because he knew if he moved they would definitely be spotted. The rest of the night was spent by Naruto asking yes or no questions and Hinata shaking her head or nodding. When the candles burned dry they packed up to leave. By the end of the evening when Hinata spoke she stuttered less, which was a good sign. They parted ways once out of the forest. Naruto went home, not even a bit worried about the fox. When he ran out of available energy the freed part of his spirit would just come back to him, while the body poofed out of existence. Kyuubi being able to move in the outside world was a plus from merging. He still couldn't be freed withoutting Naruto and thusing him, but this would do for the time being. Their spirits were intertwined. The shock of suddenly having no demonic energy in his body would Naruto. However, since the fox had merged his power with him, he would never lose all the demonic energy, thus weakening the seal. They were both slowly working to untwine their spirits so the fox didn't need to rely on him as much. Naruto let out a sigh as he got to the apartment. He slowly dragged himself up the stairs, into his nightwear and into his bed. Meanwhile Sasuke was contemplating why he was following the idiot in the first place. All such contemplation became lost, however, as Sakura started talking about how cute the two were together. He literally had to shove her in the door of her house then run like mad just to be rid of her. Life was so much easier when girls thought guys had cooties. Naruto awoke the next morning when the light came into the open window. Naruto blinked out of sync as his eyes finally began to focus. He sat up with one eye half open and looked at the taped-up alarm clock. It was a half hour before he had to meet with his team at the training grounds. He went through his morning routine and replaced the genjutsu before slowly heading off. He got there early so he could set up his traps. He finished just as his teammates came into the training grounds. They stood over by the logs for about an hour before Naruto decided to take a nap. Just wake me up when he comes, Naruto yawned as he took about 20 steps, circled his spot twice, then laid down for a nap. Kyuubi. What? Can you hold the genjutsu for me while I sleep? Yes I can, not for too long, but long enough for that lazy teacher to get here. Hope he likes what we prepared for him. Naruto laughed in his mind before thanking the giant kitsune and then closing off his mind to sleep. 3 hours later when Kakashi showed up, he was facing the three stumps. Noticing no one was there, he began to look around. He spotted his students sleeping on one another in a pile behind him. He woke them up by yelling at them all quite loud. They woke up with a jump. All three yawned before standing. Okay, so now that I have your attention I'll explain. You will try to take these bells from me. He held up 2 silver bells, and the one who doesn't get one will be tied to the post and not given any lunch, then that person will go back to the academy, he said. You have until noon to get a bell, alright. Arg, I didn't have dinner either. Sakura thought. Damn, I knew I should have eaten, Sasuke thought. Ha, I ate breakfast this time Naya. Naruto thought. Go. Immediately Sasuke and Sakura jumped off into a tree, but Naruto just stood there for a minute. He yawned then leisurely walked away. Kakashi raised an unseen eyebrow then began to charge, hoping to force his student to run. Naruto stopped, turned to his teacher, blinked, then realized what was going on with a yell. Gak. Not ready. Still sleepy, he said, ducking as the teacher's kick flew over his head. You must always be ready for anything, Kakashi lectured as he took out his little orange book. Perfect, Naruto thought as he charged with only one objective, get that book. Kakashi watched the boy out of the corner of his eye. Interesting, his steps are evenly apart, meaning he has had a lot of training. Naruto made a purposely sloppy punch at Kakashi's head. Yet his attacks are sloppy, almost like he's doing it on purpose, oh well. Kakashi quickly slipped behind Naruto, who noticed immediately. Keep your eyes on your opponent, and never turn your back to them. Kakashi stated. Ha ha, revenge. He thought as he initiated his plan. Kakashi wrapped his hands around his book with his pointer and middle finger still up. He brought his hands back in. Shoved them up Naruto's in the trees. Sakura and Sasuke almost face-faulted at the sight. Kakashi pushed his hands upwards, sending Naruto flying with a yell. 1,000 years of pain. He shouted. Aghhhhh. Naruto yelled as he went flying. However, Kakashi's triumph was short-lived. As he went back to read his book, he had a very, very unpleasant feeling. You should take your own advice, Naruto said from behind Kakashi. Naruto gave an evil smirk as he sent Kakashi flying with his own move. 1,000 years of pain right back at ya. Naruto yelled. After Kakashi had left the ground, he put his hands back, covering his very, very sore butt. Of course, in doing so, he dropped his little orange book. Naruto's plan had worked. He had used a replacement jutsu with a clone. While Kakashi was busy taking care of the clone, he had gotten behind him. His teammates came out from hiding with a disturbed look on their faces. Caught him by surprise, they both thought walking over. Naruto grinned. We obviously can't beat him, Sakura said, hanging her head. Yeah, that's why we need to team up, Naruto said. But either way, at least one of us will fail, Sasuke said simply. Would you rather all of us fail? Naruto asked logically. The two shook their heads. Right, so this is what we're going to do. Naruto began to tell his teammates his plan. When he was done, he looked at their faces. Their expressions had a mix of, PFFT, yeah right, that will never work, and, heh, this sounds like fun. Sasuke even had an evil smirk. They set it up, although Naruto had his part up already, and began waiting, knowing that their silver-haired teacher would come back for his precious book. They heard a rustle and, sure enough, Kakashi appeared with his head down, looking for the book. He continued walking but stepped on a tripwire. A bucket of glue and feathers dumped on him. The glue Naruto had stolen from the academy on the way to the grounds. The feathers were from Kyuubi's pheasant feast. Sakura jumped out, attempting to snag the bells, but missed since Kakashi could still see. However, Kakashi sidestepped onto another prank. Eggs flew from all angles, since it caught him by surprise to get another trap so close to the last, all of them hit him. Why eggs and not perhaps pie? Or instead something pointy, you may ask? Naruto explained to the others that they didn't want to their teacher, only get the bells. However, it was actually a well-known fact to Naruto that Kakashi hated raw eggs. He had told him in the future when they had to help out on a farm. He hated raw eggs because his parents wanted him to become a strong man. Unfortunately for the young Kakashi, they heard that drinking 10 raw eggs a day was a good way to do that. Oh god no! Kakashi screamed. No more eggs. With that, he ran off with his students close behind. Kakashi ran straight to where Naruto was hiding. Naruto jumped out, stopping the teacher in his tracks. I knew you reminded me of someone, now I know who, he said, looking deep in thought. Sasuke and Sakura had caught up to the teacher and were ready to pounce. Oh, Naruto asked somewhat curiously. With these pranks, I mean, Kakashi sighed while Naruto's eyes lit up. He began to flash through seals that Kakashi recognized oh too well. And he's found his father's prank jutsu scroll too. Kakashi thought, scared and surprised. Naruto stopped on a ram seal, then brought his hands to his mouth and took a deep breath in. The hell, he knows a fire jutsu too. Damn him. But Sasuke's thought fell away as silly strings shot out of his mouth instead of flames. Kakashi's eye twitched, but when he wiped off his face he caught sight of his book lying on the ground, by a tree. He went over to pick it up, but he was caught in a noose around his foot and lifted into the tree. Naruto walked over and grabbed the bells off of Kakashi, then smirked and said, when the bait is obvious, don't take it. Naruto tossed the bells to his teammates. But if you give us both, you won't pass, Sakura said. Kakashi was now down from the rope and walked over to them. Naruto stood with his team and waited. Good job, you all pass, he said a little too happily, considering that his head as well as most of his upper body was covered in feathers and glue. What? But Naruto gave me and Sasuke the bells. Sakura said, surprised. Yes, that is true. However, in a roundabout way, you all got your hands on a bell. Naruto was the one who took them from me, but he then passed them to you too. The object was teamwork, which you obviously have. These traps were quite elaborate. Do you get it? The three nodded. Good. Now I'm going to take a long hot shower and I'll see you all in the morning. We'll meet at that red bridge at about 7. You better not be late or I'll egg you again. Naruto said, causing Kakashi to cringe. He poofed away with a shudder, thinking, I don't even want to know how he found out about that. What kind of big master plan was that? Sakura screamed. It worked, didn't it? Naruto replied. You said you were going to distract him and make him see the book, Sasuke said coldly. Yeah, and I did it through the power of pranks. Naruto protested. You are so immature. Sakura screeched. Yes, I know. But you're only young once. But immaturity is forever. He replied metaphorically. Dumbass, Sasuke muttered. Naruto just rolled his eyes and began to walk away. Plan worked. They don't suspect a thing. They didn't even ask about the silly string jutsu. Yay. I'm going to sleep now. He stopped when he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to face Sasuke. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Thanks. Sasuke muttered. Yeah, no problem, Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head. They looked over at Sakura, who was still laughing. She pointed down over the cliff. Naruto and Sasuke peered over the edge and instantly paled. The cliff was only about 7 feet up. We shall never speak of this again, Sasuke said, eyeing a small puddle below. Agreed. At least we didn't get our feet wet. Naruto offered. Sasuke shrugged. They both turned to glare at Sakura, who had stopped laughing. The two gave in. If you breathe a word to anyone, you're dead, glare. Sakura eeked, before holding up her hands in defense. Sasuke and Naruto smirked at each other. Well, that was certainly interesting. Yeah, we already have minimal understanding. I'm going to get my best friend back. Yeah, sure, a few more hugs outta do it. That shut the fox up. Perhaps we should spar farther away from cliffs. Naruto asked, smirking. Yeah, Sasuke said through a bit of a chuckle. Naruto smiled. Over the years he'd known Sasuke, before Orochimaru's surprise attack thatted him, that is, he'd found exactly how to piss him off and get him to laugh. They went to a different location and began the sparring match anew. Naruto went easy on Sasuke, barely using any jutsus, and let it end in a tie. After saying goodbye to his teammates, he began to head home. He figured that the only way he could get any decent practice was if he found a faraway spot. He continued to walk until he bumped into a familiar face. Oh, hi Hinata, Naruto said happily. Anime and manga. Hi-n Naruto, she said softly. Naruto smiled as Hinata blushed. I hope she gets her confidence up soon. The stuttering makes her hard to understand. Iruka, R ramen, says ul like. Hinata stuttered out nervously. Naruto blinked, trying to get the information straight. Oh, yeah, I like ramen. Hinata shakily pointed at the ramen bar, then began to push her fingers together. Sure, Naruto said happily. When they got there, they took their seats and placed their order. They had a bit of conversation. Hinata soon had less of a stutter and wasn't blushing as much. After about an hour they decided to depart. Naruto paid the bill, much to Hinata's dismay. She was hoping to treat him as a thank you for the home-cooked food. She knew she'd have to do something extra special to thank him and was thinking of ways to thank him as she ran home. Naruto trotted happily home, thinking of a place that he could train and not cause too much destruction. The next morning Naruto awoke just before sunrise. He yawned, stretched, stood up, took a few steps, and smacked right into a wall. Naruto stood there for a few minuets before realizing what he had done. He let out a bit of a laugh before grabbing his clothes and taking a nice relaxing cold shower to wake him up. After drying himself off, he got dressed, then began his breakfast. He made some toast and drank some water. After he was done with that, he grabbed an apple to eat later, replaced the genjutsu, and then left to go train until the sun was almost directly overhead. He went to a spot that wasn't too far from the bridge, but far enough away to not be detected. Kakashi said meet around 7, so that means that I have until 8:30 to train, considering my threat. Needless to say, the small area in which he cleared for himself to train was soon a large crater. He threw a kunai with an exploding tag on it at the last target and it blew up just as Naruto became too tired to stand. He fell backwards into the crater. Unfortunately, Sasuke and Sakura arrived at the bridge just when they heard the final explosion. They turned to look in the direction it came from and saw a tree fall, as well as smoke. They both thought the worst and took off in the direction it came from. They arrived just in time to see Naruto pull himself out of the crater. Sakura gasped at the destruction, while Sasuke gaped at it. Naruto saw them, sat up, and rubbed the back of his head. Heh heh, oops, he said solemnly before coughing up some dust. What the hell were you doing? Sasuke asked in monotone. Training, Naruto said sheepishly. Only you could cause that much destruction during training, Sakura stated. I think I used too much chakra when I punched that rock. Naruto grinned. You definitely used too much chakra for punching a rock, she replied. I wonder if I'll ever be able to train without people hanging over me, Naruto thought as he tried to stand but fell down again, his legs refusing to support him. Sasuke went to help Naruto hobble to the bridge. Anime and manga. Why do you work yourself to exhaustion? Sakura asked when the two came close to her. Naruto shrugged, too tired to answer. Idiot, she yelled, hitting him on the head, causing Sasuke to lose his grip, making Naruto fall to the ground. I could lend you a tiny bit of my chakra so you could at least walk, the fox said. As long as that's all you give me. Naruto thought to him. Yeah, this is why I'm in control of 25% of all the chakra you have. He heard Kyuubi snicker a bit as he felt a warm feeling wash over him. It reminded him of Tsunade's healing. You sick? Sasuke asked when he felt the heat coming off of Naruto's body. No, why? Naruto replied. Sasuke was about to say something when Sakura beat him to it. Naruto, the back of your shirt is really shredded. Naruto reached and rubbed his back. It's ripped from the collar to about halfway down. Sasuke said, letting go of Naruto's arm. Oh well, I'll see if I have anything to fix it when I get home. Naruto rubbed the back of his head nervously. Naruto grabbed his orange jacket that was lying by a very lucky tree that was still standing nearby. He put it on over his tattered navy t-shirt. They walked in silence until they got to the bridge. Naruto sat on the railing, eating the apple he had brought. An hour later Kakashi showed up. Wow, only an hour and a half late. That's actually a big improvement. Naruto thought as he joined Sakura in yelling, you're late. Yeah, sorry about that but, you see, there was this tree and it was stuck up in a cat and, wait. No, that's not right, Kakashi said, rubbing his chin. Right, if you're going to make an excuse, at least make it believable, Naruto said as he rolled his eyes. Yes. Well anyway, we have a full schedule of exciting D-ranked missions, Kakashi said happily. Yay! Naruto said sarcastically. Sasuke shot him a questioning glance before turning his attention back to Kakashi, who started to explain exactly what these missions entailed. Once he was done, He led the ever so excited genin to their first job, finding a cat. They were given out earpieces so they could coordinate the plan better. They were shown a map of the forest, then given their positions and told to begin their sweep of the area. Naruto almost instantly caught the scent of the cat and followed it. About 5 minutes after beginning, Naruto had the cat. He happily announced to his team, "Ha ha. Told ya I'd find it first." Hiao. The three walked out to where Kakashi was waiting for them, Naruto holding the cat that was growling and scratching him to pieces. Naruto was angrily growling back. Sakura finally took the cat after it got a few deep gouges on Naruto's face and bite marks on his hand. Sasuke raised an eyebrow at the way the cat seemed willing to do anything to Naruto. He doesn't like his owner that much, Naruto said when he felt the air of confusion. When they returned the cat to its owner, she hugged the poor thing nearly to death. The next mission they had was to simply help pick the fruit trees. There were about 50 in all. Sakura started on an apple tree while Sasuke started picking peaches. Naruto, however, lined up the remaining fruit baskets before making 47 clones. They were done in 30 minutes due to Naruto's multitasking. They whizzed through all the missions and were done around 2 o'clock. They definitely surprised the Hokage at their fast work. "We want to have a harder mission," Naruto stated. The Hokage sighed as Iruka started scolding Naruto. He was there handing the Hokage some paperwork when Team 7 came in. "You are genin, and rookies at that. You are still too underexperienced to handle anything more difficult," was the Hokage's reply. "Hear me out, please, Hokage-sama," Naruto said, causing Iruka to raise an eyebrow. The Hokage complied, knowing that not to would lead to a lot of arguing. "I've seen enough Ds and that's even before I was considered a ninja. Just take a look at my academy report card," Naruto mumbled before continuing. "Anime and manga. We are completing the D-ranked missions quite quickly, and since we need to have missions all day, there might not be enough for all the others. We need a mission that will keep us occupied and challenge us so we can gain experience for even harder missions." The Hokage smiled while Iruka had to pick his jaw up off the floor. Sakura was wide-eyed, as was Sasuke, having never heard Naruto speak and sound intelligent. Kakashi was giggling as he read his book. "That actually sounded not dumb," Sasuke said, surprised. "I'll take that as a compliment," Naruto replied with a smirk. "Well, alright then, you do bring up a good point. I'll give you a low-level C mission, simple guard duty. You will guard the master bridge builder Tazuna on his way to Wave Country tomorrow." The Hokage called him in. These pint-sized brats are going to be the ones protecting me. There's an arrogant brat, a puffy princess, and a midget." Sakura began to fume and Sasuke's eye began to twitch at the comment, however, Naruto stayed surprisingly calm. Kakashi stepped forward. "Yes, but I'm a Junin and I also will be accompanying you." The old man grunted as he took out a flask. "And you're a drunk," Sasuke stated simply, causing Tazuna to blink. "Okay, is everyone done being negative?" Naruto asked, grinning, causing everyone to look at him, confused. "Anyway, you will start tomorrow morning at 8 in the morning. Meet at the North Gate," the Hokage said. Team 7 nodded. "Pack only the essentials," he advised. "Hey, Iruka," Naruto asked before leaving. "What is it, Naruto? Could you look after my place while I'm gone?" Iruka nodded. When Naruto finally caught up with his team, Kakashi told Team 7 that they were given the rest of the day off so they could rest up for their mission before poofing away. "Anime and manga." Naruto sighed and turned to his team. "I wonder." He smiled a crooked smile before asking as cheerily as he could, "I'm going to the lake in the forest, you guys wanna come?" Sasuke made no expression, even when Sakura came from behind and tried to hug him. He simply did what Naruto had named the shudder shuffle. He shuddered then quickly moved, scuffing his feet on the ground. Sasuke grunted after a moment of silence. I'll go if Sasuke goes. Sakura chimed, causing Sasuke to inch away even more. Sasuke grunted again. Naruto smiled. Maybe I'll get my happy friends back sooner than I thought, Naruto thought as he began to leave his teammates, hoping they were following. They soon came to the lake after walking in silence the whole time, Naruto thinking about the great friendship he had shared with Sasuke. After he gave up the whole, "my whole clan is dead, I must be an avenger" thing. Sasuke, however, was thinking differently. He invited me along. That can only mean he wants to fight. Perhaps he's going to tell me how to get that strange chakra he's been giving off lately. Or maybe it's a trap, and so on. Sakura was just happy to be near Sasuke and blushed every time she looked at him. Hope she snaps out of that quickly, Naruto thought, glancing back. Yes, poor Sakura had to abandon her feelings for Sasuke when he ran away to join Sound, turning her affections to the person who always let her have his shoulder to cry on. She agreed to go out with him after about 6 months, and after a very, very extreme makeover. Naruto chuckled, remembering how he had helped tame the green beast of Konoha. Poorly. His forehead was red for 3 days. Thankfully they used permanent hair remover so his eyebrows won't grow back. Hell, even Sasuke had eventually found someone to love, even though he was the last one to get married. They had to be the scariest couple in Konoha. Flashback. Come on, Sasuke. You're supposed to dance. Naruto whined. The rookie 9 plus Neji's team were all in a nightclub. Sasuke was brought along, told they were going to a party, but in reality, everyone was setting him up. Yeah, Sasuke, let loose for once in your life, Hinata egged on. Naruto had been married to Hinata for about a year at that point. I don't dance. That's the point I'm trying to make, Sasuke said. Over the years Sasuke had given up on his revenge and become more open to the people he was close to. Naruto rolled his eyes and saw Sakura signaling to him. Sakura had brought Indigo with her to set Sasuke up with her. Indigo was a ninja from the Hidden Mist who moved to Konoha in hopes of becoming one of the best medic nins. Problem was, she had a personality like a brick. Naruto grabbed Sasuke's shoulders, as did Sakura to Indigo. They both pushed them over to the stools, where they now sat side by side. Sakura looked Indigo in the eyes and said, "Fine, if you're not going to dance, just sit here." Naruto did the same to Sasuke. Sasuke and Indigo whined in unison. They asked at the same time as they turned to each other. Grr. They growled angrily at each. They both looked surprised. They seemed to say flirtingly. You're hot, they both said, causing the other to blink. Wanna go train? Indigo asked, almost excited. Do I ever? Sasuke said almost happily. And with that, they both walked out of the club, leaving a creeped out Sakura, Hinata, and Naruto with their eyes twitching. That was creepy. The three said at the same time. We have created a relationship bound by one word. Sakura said. I pity their children, Naruto said, causing his two friends to shudder at the thought. They will be able to freeze lava by glaring at it. Hinata said. Scratch my last comment. I pity their children's classmates. Naruto said. The three glanced nervously at each other before being pulled back to the dance floor. Anime and manga. End flashback. Naruto had been lost in his memories and began laughing out loud. When he snapped out of his thoughts, he was ankle deep in water. Sakura and Sasuke gave him a weird look as Naruto smiled nervously. Sorry, Just lost in my memories. Are we going to fight? Sasuke asked, changing the subject. Naruto blinked. No. Then why am I here? Sasuke asked. So we can bond, and become closer friends, and have better teamwork. Naruto offered. I don't need any of that. All I need is power. Sasuke said coldly. Naruto sighed as he walked out of the water and grabbed 2 rocks and a small vine. You say you want power, yet true power comes from friendship and teamwork, Naruto started. Wow, this seems like deja vu. Sakura blinked. He's being philosophical again. He seems totally different ever since he graduated. Alone you can only do so much, Naruto said as he dropped one of the stones he picked up. It fell, moving the sand out and making a small hole. He then carefully picked up the stone and tied it together with the other stone he had. But if you have someone to back you up. Naruto dropped the 2 stones tied together a little bit away from the first crater. They fell, making a bigger hole than the single stone. You can do a lot more. Naruto pointed to the holes in the sand. Sasuke had no facial expression. There's nothing wrong in asking for help to achieve your goals, Naruto said, hoping to get through his thick layer of angst. You never had a family. What would you know? Sasuke growled. A lot more than you give me credit for, Naruto said calmly. Yep. Definitely deja vu. Yeah, but hopefully it will have the same outcome. This caught Sasuke's attention. You know that I can't beat you in a sparring match, right? Naruto asked. This caused Sasuke to look Naruto in the eye and nod. But if I team up with Sakura, I bet we could beat you, Naruto said, stressing the we. You're on. Sasuke shouted as he jumped back. Naruto turned to Sakura. We'll attack from opposite sides, you distract him while I go in to hold him down, Naruto whispered to her. I can't hurt Sasuke. Sakura shouted, causing Naruto to roll his eyes. I'll leave you with a clone so he won't notice me as easily, Naruto said as he quickly made a clone then jumped off. Sasuke was too infuriated to take notice of this as Sakura and the clone charged. Sasuke dodged and blocked, but he found it rather difficult to get any punches in. He threw a punch at Sakura, who dodged and retaliated with a punch of her own. It hit and was probably going to leave a nice purple bruise under his eye. Before he knew it, he was on the ground with Naruto standing on his back holding a kunai to his neck. He wasn't sure how it had happened, but one thing for certain, he had lost a match. To the dead last and a fangirl no less. Case in point, Naruto said, letting Sasuke up. Sasuke grumbled incoherently under his breath. Anyway, do you see what I'm trying to tell you? Now I'm going to do what I came here in the first place for, Naruto said as he took off his jacket. It doesn't matter. No one will ever change the fact that I'm an Avenger. Sasuke half shouted. Naruto shrugged. He went over to place his things on a large rock. Sakura blushed a bit when Naruto came back over wearing nothing but his green boxers. He went into the lake and started to swim. It was a saltwater lake that was connected to a river from the wave country's oceans. Sasuke was still angry, but it was slowly subsiding. Sakura was happy Sasuke wasn't moving away from her. You coming in? Naruto yelled from the middle of the lake. Sakura took a few steps and sat on a rock, letting her feet get wet. Sasuke just stood there, lost in his thoughts of destruction. Well, that went well, Naruto said to himself before diving to find what he was looking for. At the bottom he found what he wanted. Some very shiny shells and quite a few oysters. He grabbed as many as he could carry then started to surface. Once his head broke into the air, he swam back to shore where a curious Sakura was sitting. Shells and clams, Dobi? Sasuke asked, coming back to reality. What are they for? Sakura asked, picking up a silvery blue shell. Hinata, I'm giving her a gift, Naruto said as he grabbed a stick. Oh yeah, what girl wouldn't want clams? Sasuke said looking at the oyster. First of all, they're oysters, and second, it's the inside that counts, Naruto said as he popped open an oyster, revealing a pearl. Sakura instantly went into girly mode. Ah, that's so sweet, she said, imagining Sasuke giving her a pearl necklace, pearl earrings, etc. Why don't you just buy one? Sasuke asked, calmly forgetting the earlier events. I don't have enough money, so I'll do the next best thing. PFF'd. Who needs love? Sasuke said, more to himself than his team. Anime and manga. Naruto sighed at the comment before turning to see a square rock. Naruto looked at his teammates and jabbed a thumb at the rock. Sakura giggled, still lost in thought, and Sasuke raised an eyebrow. Well, whatever, I'm leaving, Sasuke said and began to walk off. Sasuke, wait for me. Will you maybe do something with me? Sakura screamed as she ran after Sasuke. Hey, don't leave me all alone with the totally unsuspicious square rock with eye holes. Naruto yelled sarcastically. He turned to the rock and sighed. And you would be? Naruto asked, as if I didn't already know. You're very good to have noticed me. Just what I expected from you, boss. And with that the rock blew up. Konohamaru started to cough and hack from inhaling the smoke. I cough, want you to cough, teach me how to do what you did to cough, the Hokage and Iruka. The kid whined. On one condition, Naruto said, closing an eye. Okay. What? Konohamaru asked eagerly. Help me open these oysters to get the pearls, Naruto said happily. The kid blinked. He was expecting something hard to prove he could do it. After collecting the things he needed and putting the pearls and shells in an inside pocket, he began the long process to train Konohamaru to do the sexy no jutsu. It took a few hours for him to get it right. Naruto grinned in remembrance. He may have been 23, but, thanks to that jutsu, infiltration missions were a breeze. Thank the heavens for perverted men. After he perfected the jutsu and a few lectures from Naruto on why he wanted to be the Hokage, Ebisu showed up. Ah, there you are, young master. He said, jumping down from a tree. You must come back with me imminently to continue your training. Konohamaru then transformed into his version of the sexy no jutsu. Ebisu got a small nosebleed, blinked, and then went on to grab Konohamaru. Naruto made about 30 clones and transformed them all. The poor man flew back with a massive nosebleed. Wow, that was amazing, boss. The kid yelled as Naruto walked over to where Ebisu flew. That was disgraceful, the fox said as he examined the unconscious man. Hey, don't wanna change history too much. I just wanna help the good get here faster. Naruto thought to Kyuubi. Naruto soon left the lake and went home to make the necklaces for Hinata. It was dark when he had finished and set out to find her. It didn't take long for him to find her. She was in a training ground beating up a stump. Hey Hinata, he called, causing her to jump. Oh, hello Naruto, she replied, blushing. I got a surprise for you. Naruto said happily. Hinata's whole face went red. What is it? Hinata asked excitedly, though it sounded more nervous. Naruto then brought out a small thing wrapped up in tissue. Hinata took it and gasped aloud when she saw it. I'm going on a long mission, now you'll have a part of me with you. I hope you like it. I made it myself, so it's like I put my heart and soul into it. Naruto said, smiling. Naruto had strung the pearls in between the pieces of multicolored shells. At the front there were 3 aqua pieces of shell. Needless to say, her voice abandoned her. She put it on and turned bright red as she did so. Thank you, was all she managed to stammer out. Glad you like it, Naruto said. Let's do something when I get back, K. Hinata nodded and Naruto turned to leave, but then turned back to face Hinata. Hinata blushed even more at this. Almost forgot, he said as he moved in closer. Hinata felt her face burn up as he moved closer and closer. A new type of tomato was formed as she felt what she had always dreamt about feeling one day. Naruto had kissed her. It was on the cheek, but that's all the proof she needed. Finally she knew, he liked her too. Naruto then turned to leave, grinning like a madman. He was still smiling when he got home. Hinata, however, stood dazed for a bit before fainting, still bright red. As soon as Naruto got home he began to pack. Colorful language filled the air since Naruto was slowly realizing he didn't have half of what he wanted. He simply packed everything that was required with a few snacks, along with a few other things that he thought might be useful. As soon as he was packed he went into the happy bliss known as sleep. He woke up the next morning greeting the sun's rays. Grumbling, knowing the fact that he wouldn't be able to get any more sleep, he sat up. Damn son. It won this round, he said through a yawn. He stripped off his pajamas, took a shower bashing into a wall on the way, got dressed, and ate breakfast, making sure everything was good to go. He left. He dropped his key off to Aruka by slipping it through the mail slot before rushing off to the village gate to meet his team. He only had to wait 20 minutes for his team to arrive, then only another 10 for Kakashi to come with Tazuna. Once they were all there, they went over some things before leaving. The beginning of the trip turned out to be boring. Naruto was going over what had happened last time on the mission. He had to smile at how naive he had been. He began to meditate while still walking, a trick he had learned from Lee. Lee had also taught him how to sleep while running, a trick which he was thankful for when traveling extremely far distances in short periods of time. However, it didn't last long. He soon heard a rustle in the bushes. He smirked, remembering the demon brothers of the mist. He opened his eyes and spotted the puddle in the middle of the road. An idea pooled into his head. You guys go on a bit. I gotta take a leak, Naruto said to his team. Idiot. Don't tell us this. Sakura yelled as she went to punch him on the head. Naruto was about to dodge but then stopped himself. Sakura stomped away happily, seeing the bump she had inflicted. Naruto grinned evilly at the puddle and took his leak. Kakashi was watching Naruto from behind him, feeling sorry for the guys who he knew were hiding in there. Oh well, can't be helped, he thought. The demon brothers were beyond pissed. They were going to take out the Junin first, but the kid just changed their minds. They'd this brat first. When Naruto started to walk away, the demon brother who was in the puddle came up and out, eye twitching with a deranged look on his face. All you for doing that, brat. He yelled as his brother jumped down out of the tree. Naruto put on his innocent face then looked back at Kakashi. There was a guy in the puddle. He asked, innocent face on. When Kakashi nodded, his team all made disgusted faces. Naruto looked as if to say, their fault, not mine. He was about to turn back around to fight them when he felt the cold metal wrap around his body. Kakashi had never been so worried in all his life. He was worried for his student. Annoying though he may be, he'd never hear the end of it if he goaded. Kakashi was about to run when the brothers pulled tight the chains. The metal bit into Naruto's flesh, blood slipped down them and onto the ground. The two pulled tighter and tighter until the chains were no longer visible, being deeply embedded in flesh. When Naruto slumped over, the two dropped him, completely mangled. Naruto! Kakashi screamed. When Naruto slumped over, the two dropped him, completely mangled. Naruto! Kakashi screamed. Naruto! Sakura yelled, tears beginning to well up in her eyes. Idiot! Sasuke said loudly and angrily, but his voice held a hint of remorse. Poor kid! Tazuna gasped. They all had a mix of emotions. Anger and sadness. No. He was so young. Was heard from behind them. They turned to look. Sasuke's eye began to twitch. Why are we all yelling? Naruto asked, confused. Now they all had a different mix of emotions. Anger, wanting to punch Naruto's head in for making them worry, and hugging him for being alright. We thought you got yourself. Sakura screamed. Ah, you care. Naruto said somewhat sarcastically. They all looked back to where they thought Naruto was and heard a loud pop. The mangled Naruto disappeared in a puff of smoke. Kakashi then decided to attack the demon brothers. He quickly knocked them out, tied them up, then came back over. How were you able to do that? Sakura asked. It was just a clone with a replacement jutsu, Naruto whined. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Naruto, that was a very advanced clone. That clone even bled before it disappeared, he said lazily. I was informed you could do Kage Bunshin, but what was that? Naruto rubbed the back of his head. I call it a chakra bunshin. Naruto announced happily. Interesting, Kakashi said before turning to Tazuna. We need to know some things from you, Kakashi said, causing Tazuna to flinch. We need to know if that was ninja attacking ninja or if it was you they were after. Tazuna sighed and told them his story and why he had lied. Kakashi then explained that the mission just went up to AB rank. And also said they should turn back. But after some group protesting, he caved in and allowed the mission to still be on. They began walking again, but this time Naruto was explaining the chakra bunshin. You said that you called it a chakra bunshin, right? So that means it's of your own invention, Kakashi started, stressing the, you called. Naruto nodded. Yeah, when I learned the Kage Bunshin I realized they were solids, which made me think, it would be so cool if they could last as long as I wanted and take more than one hit. So that's what I did. They can even somewhat think on their own, which makes it a lot easier on my part when I need to coordinate them, Naruto said while smiling proudly. That could be quite handy. I'll have to watch for the hand signs. Maybe he'll let me copy it. Kakashi thought. I even learned how to make them without hand seals so I can do it without the enemy seeing. Naruto said, making Kakashi look disappointed. Damn. They only had a bit of peace before Zabuza showed up and attacked them. The genin were to protect the bridge builder while Kakashi fought. Naruto watched as everything took place just as he remembered it. Soon enough Kakashi was imprisoned inside the ball of water and Zabuza had sent a few water clones their way. Naruto made about 100 Kage Bunshins and sloppily punched at the water clones. Sasuke attacked as well, leaving Sakura to defend Tazuna by herself. About half of Naruto's clones had been defeated when he decided to get rid of the water clone. Naruto then made a run for Kakashi, who was yelling at them to run away, and threw an onslaught of weaponry at Zabuza. Naruto made quite sure that the only way for him to come out alive would be to abandon his hold on Kakashi. Zabuza did just that. The distraction even made him lose enough concentration that the water clones that Sasuke and his Bunshins were still fighting dispelled. Gotta love it when things go better than planned, Naruto thought to himself. Kakashi, immediately after being freed from the water prison, uncovered the Sharingan. Kakashi then began to imitate everything that Zabuza did. Can you see into the future? Zabuza asked, somewhat fearful at how fast he was imitating him. Why yes, Kakashi said as he began to copy Zabuza's water dragon. The water dragons hit each other, spraying water everywhere. Zabuza went to attack again but was stopped when Senbon needles pierced into his neck. There's good ol' Haku, Naruto thought as he spotted him. I've been tracking him for a while now. I thank you in your assistance in this capture, Haku said. Kakashi nodded in response. Haku then took Zabuza away, leaving no trace that they were even there. Kakashi looked like he was completely drained of energy, but luckily they were almost at their destination. Once they got to Tazuna's place, Team 7 helped their sensei up the stairs so he could rest. They all had different outlooks on their current situation. Sakura felt upset that she wasn't able to do more to help. Sasuke was angry that the hunter nin was stronger than him. Naruto felt bad for not fighting at his full potential, while Kakashi was just glad that everyone was in one piece. They didn't do much for the first bit they were there, as their sensei was out cold and Tazuna didn't go anywhere. Sasuke spent most of his time brooding in a corner, while Sakura and Naruto talked with their client's family. When Kakashi did wake up, though, they went out to do the tree climbing exercise. Now, let's see how we can have some fun with this, Naruto thought as Kakashi explained how to do it. He then climbed up the tree, crutches and all, and hung upside down off a branch, sticking to the bark with his chakra. I want you to get to the top of a tree only using your chakra and by channeling into your legs and feet. When it was their turn to try, Sakura made it up on her first try and Sasuke got up about 2 steps before falling back. Kakashi turned to Naruto expectantly. Come on Naruto, I understand that chakra control isn't one of your strong points, but... Kakashi thought for a moment. I bet Sasuke can do it easier than you, he said, knowing of their rivalry from Iruka. But I don't wanna. Naruto yelled childishly. Come on, Naruto, Kakashi said, rubbing his temples. No, I don't wanna. Naruto yelled, crossing his arms on his chest, giving a pout. He could hear the fox laughing to no end in his mind. Naruto turned away from Kakashi so he wouldn't see him smile. Quit being a baby, Dobi, Sasuke said, standing up. I said I don't wanna. Naruto screamed childishly before stomping off. Kakashi went after him. He didn't have to go far. Oh, for the love of... Kakashi said, smacking his head as he found the blonde. Naruto was standing in the middle of a river. On top of the water. Kakashi grumbled about stubborn know-it-all brats. That's great that you can do that Naruto, now let's go take a nice walk on the trees, Kakashi said. Fine, if he wants to act like a child then I'm going to treat him like one. Kakashi thought angrily. I don't wanna, Naruto said simply and turned away again trying not to laugh. Come on, you can show Sasuke up if you make it up the tree before him, Kakashi bribed. No, was the simple reply. Fine, ultimate bribe. I'll buy you a bowl of Ichiraku ramen when we go back to Konoha, Kakashi coaxed. Back at the trees Sakura and Sasuke sweat dropped. They were high enough in the trees so they could see everything and they were talking loud enough they didn't need to get any closer. Sasuke, do you know of any good, happy hotels? Sakura asked. If you find one let me know. We'll send him there and split the costs 50-50, Sasuke said. Nope. Won't work. Naruto said happily. Kakashi glared. Fine. We'll do things the hard way. Kakashi then went over to Naruto, grabbed him by the back of his shirt collar, and began dragging him back. Sasuke and Sakura nearly face-faulted out of the trees they were in when they saw the look on Naruto's face. When Kakashi brought him back he glared firmly at him. Naruto crossed his arms yet again and pouted. It was the most pitiful face that any human being could possibly make. Climb, Kakashi said, annoyed. Kid, if you look closely you can see his face turning red with anger. This is more amusing than the time you got your head stuck in that tree and had to carry it to the hospital to get it removed. And with that Kyuubi burst out into uncontrollable laughter. Must you always insult me? It is what I live for. Naruto sighed, though it went unnoticed. But it's so big. Kakashi gave him a death glare. Fine. Naruto screamed. Kakashi fell back from the volume then began poking his ear with his pinky. Naruto just walked straight to the tree and climbed all the way up to the top as if it were nothing. Happy now? Naruto said in a bored tone. What? Kakashi blinked, still probing his ear. He looked up the tree. Oh, good job Naruto, now was that so bad? Naruto blew Kakashi a raspberry from up in the tree. Kakashi rolled his eaves. Sasuke was mad. No, Sasuke was beyond mad. The idiot, the class clown, the doby, had done better than him. I need more power. These two are surpassing me. I can't let that happen. I need power so I may finally avenge my clan. And so on into much more bloody thoughts. Naruto then simply jumped down, landing soundlessly on the ground. Sakura also came down. The two looked at Kakashi expectantly. Good job, Kakashi said in nervous cheer. Now I'm going help out Sasuke, okay? I'm off. Then he disappeared into smoke. Naruto turned to Sakura with a smile. So he started, only to get whacked on the back of the head. Right. I get it. I'm gone, Naruto said as he put his hands up defensively before taking off. Once out of earshot, Naruto burst out laughing. I can't believe you actually did that. The fox said. Thought I'd never be free. Oh well, got some laughs out of it anyway, Naruto sighed. Oh well, now let's find a nice spot to destroy, Naruto said looking at the poor defenseless trees around him. Look, 'tis a time skip. It was now sunset and Sasuke had finally made it to the top of the tree. It had taken him the past 5 hours to get up there. He sighed in triumph. He had used up pretty much all of his chakra. He gulped a bit as a very big realization hit him. How was he to get down? No chakra meant no sticking to the side of the tree. No sticking to the side of the tree meant he was going to have to climb down the normal way. Fortunately for him, the tree had very few branches to interrupt his fall to the ground. Sakura was at the base of tree cheering him on and getting on his nerves. He slowly began his descent to where a rabid pink-haired banshee awaited. Naruto had made a nice hole a while back to hide most of the debris he had made, and was already back at the house helping Tsunami cook. Naruto left no proof behind that he had been training in the spot by the river, unless, that is, you count the huge gaping holes filled with branches and mud. Yep, no one would ever know he was there. When Sasuke and Sakura had gotten back, the dinner was already on the table. Everyone had just sat down to eat when the two got in. I hope you all like it. It isn't much, but at least we won't go hungry, Tsunami said as she sat down at the table. Tazuna seemed to smile at the food in front of him. Naruto helped me out and we only used half the food I thought we'd need. Naruto scratched his head upon having his name mentioned but smiled nonetheless. They all sat down to eat but Inari. It's all pointless. You can never win, only be stopped. And if you do it's only temporary, Inari said, looking downward, you'll just end up dead like all the others. Inari went to leave but Naruto stopped him. You never know until you try. If you don't fight for change, then there will be none, Naruto said. Inari's eyes began to water. Don't cry unless you're really happy. It shows weakness, Naruto said softly. Inari then quickly ran off. Naruto sighed then went back to his meal, the rest of which was eaten in silence. After the meal Naruto went out to train some more while the other two genin went to sleep and Kakashi had a talk with Inari. Naruto figured he would simply practice taijutsu so as to not cause too much damage. He ended up falling asleep right in the middle of the forest in a small clearing. The next morning Team 7-1 woke up with a yawn. Something smells good, Sakura said, breathing deep. Kakashi nodded and left. Sasuke, who was on the other side of the room, pushed himself up groggily. He left into another room to get dressed. When Sasuke went downstairs he was met with the ever so happy sight of Kakashi. Naruto probably is out in the forest somewhere, could you go find him and tell him breakfast is almost ready? Kakashi said in a tone that was too cheery for the morning. Fine, Sasuke answered miserably. He walked out to find the Dobi with a bit of a scowl. He only walked for 5 minutes before he found him. There were a few trees that had fallen, others had multiple dents in them. He looked around then spotted Naruto, right in the middle of it. Yo, idiot, wakey wakey, dumb, Sasuke glared at Naruto's sleeping form. Well, I tried being nice. Sasuke thought to himself. Sasuke then went to kick Naruto in the side when he heard a growl. He looked to see a rather large cat protecting him. Sasuke blinked as the large orange cat then curled back up into a ball right beside Naruto, going back to sleep. Naruto awoke as a bird flew from its perch on his nose. He opened his eyes to see Sasuke staring down at him, raising an eyebrow. Naruto would have jumped away were it not for the unexpected weight on him. The hell? He asked himself. The teenage tiger, as Naruto realized, stood up and walked away, realizing its heat source would soon be gone. Naruto moved his arm, causing multiple foxes to run. He sat up confused. Naruto, I didn't know you were like that, Sasuke smirked a bit. Ha ha, real funny, Naruto said, shooing the various animals from around him. It looks like a fox, Sasuke said, raising an eyebrow. I can probably. Naruto started. Sasuke took a closer look, then gave a smirk. I always thought your hair was a rat's nest, not a fox's. Sasuke said, poking an ear. Huh, Naruto said, dumbfounded. Come on idiot, stop fraternizing with the wildlife. Breakfast is ready, Sasuke snapped. Naruto reached up to his head but went more to the center. He picked it up so he could look at it. The white and red fox opened its eyes and yawned. Naruto began to laugh. It was a fox. It was just an ordinary fox, sleeping on my head. Naruto laughed, relieved. Well duh, what did you think it was? Sasuke asked, looking at Naruto strangely. Kyuubi, I take it you did it for me. Not unless there is someone or something else in here with me that sensed him coming. If there is, please do tell. I would love the company, the fox replied sarcastically. Saves me a long line of questions I have to answer. I'm sure you'll find some way to thank me. Naruto looked up at Sasuke, who was sporting his usual bored expression. Heh heh, foxes like me, Naruto grinned. Well, at least something does, Sasuke said before walking away. Naruto placed the fox on the ground and followed after him. After they had eaten their meal, Kakashi told them that Tazuna was going to go and work on the bridge and they were going to make sure that nothing bad happened. Here, take these with you in case you get tired, Tsunami said as they were about to leave. She handed them all a water bottle, each one looking the same. When they had finally reached the bridge, Team 7 noticed there weren't many people that were there to help build the bridge. Tazuna started getting to work and convincing people to stay. Naruto sighed as he took a sip from his water bottle. Hey, this isn't water, it's sake. I must have gotten the one meant for the old man. Oh well, I could use a drink. Naruto thought to himself as he took a bigger sip. Kit, I don't think you should drink too much of that, Kyuubi advised. I can handle about 3 or 4 bottles before I get drunk. This stuff smells strong, and besides, your child body can't handle that much alcohol. That's impossible, Naruto thought to the fox. See, you're already getting tipsy. Impossible. When we went back you were able to keep your strength because of your own memory, and that memory is transferred to your body so it knows how to react. However, holding your liquor you can't memorize. Kyuubi said, hoping that Naruto wouldn't get drunk. Hey Naruto, you okay? Sakura asked. Yeah, I think so, Naruto said, staggering a little on his feet. Too late, the Kyuubi sighed. You look sick, Sakura said. Maybe you should lie down. Sasuke and I can watch things. Sasuke, Naruto replied, not really understanding. Kakashi noticed Naruto staggering and decided to take a look, Sasuke following. What's wrong with him? Sasuke asked miserably. Ha ha, hey, Sasuke, we should get the group back, together. Sing to the girls, they always like that. Naruto said, swinging an arm over Sasuke's shoulder. What are you talking about? Get off, Sasuke said, pushing the blonde away. After ya kicked da bukit da, 4-0 is split. Couldn't replace ya, Naruto said, stressing the syllables on every word. He took another swig of the alcohol. Kakashi took the bottle from him, then his eye turned up into a smile. He'll be fine, he's just drunk, he said happily. Griot. Sasuke rolled his eyes. Bukit. Is that even a word? You're drunk. The fox sighed. I drunk not am. Naruto shouted. Idiot. Who ya calling an idiot? Naruto said, staggering. You for getting drunk. And on a mission no less. A mission, Naruto said. Naruto, who are you talking to? Sakura asked. The fuzzball fox that, lives in my head. Naruto blinked a bit. Right. Sakura said, not noticing Kakashi's eye widen in horror. Now he said that he was going to take control of my body Inca, in ca, conspicuously, before I hurt myself. And others. Naruto said, then staggered back a bit. Kakashi was silently freaking out. He just called me a dumbass, but, I am above him, I have opposable thumbs. Naruto yelled at the top of his lungs, giving thumbs up. The genin of Team 7 sweat dropped, while Kakashi face faulted. Note to self, teach Naruto not to mock the big fox demon who wants to us all, Kakashi thought as he stood up. Naruto's eyes closed, and when he reopened them his pupil had a small ring of red around it, though it went unnoticed to all but Kakashi. Well, I'm going to have a little talk with Naruto about the importance of underage drinking. With that he took Naruto off into the nearby woods that were across the bridge. He does mean the importance of not drinking underage, right? Sakura asked Sasuke, but saw he was already walking back to Tazuna. Kakashi had Naruto Kyuubi by the wrist and was doing his best to stay calm. What are you going to do with Naruto? Are you going to use his body to get revenge on Konoha? Kakashi said, trying his best to hide his fear and uncovering the Sharingan. Kyuubi raised an eyebrow. I would do that, why? He said calmly. This comment startled him. Why you're not going to my team? Kakashi said as threateningly as he could. No, I am not going to harm Maul, or anyone in any way, Kyuubi said, getting annoyed. The only reason I'm taking control of the kid is because the last time he got drunk let's just say he wasn't allowed anything pointy for a while. Kakashi gulped. He was finally going to ask the question that had been plaguing him for 12 years. Why did you attack Konoha 12 years ago? Kakashi asked, a little calmer now. Kyuubi looked him straight in the eye, startling him. I was just passing by in a forest that surrounded your village. I had shrunk my size, so I was no larger than a big dog. A few leaf ninjas spotted me and thought I was sneaking towards the village to attack. They attacked me. I tried to evade, but I wasn't quick enough as I was. I thought I could cover more ground if I had bigger paws, so I went to my normal size. That's when the village sounded the alarm. I was being attacked by nearly everyone I saw. So I was labeled by everyone as a threat. I attacked, hoping that everyone would just leave me alone. I was then confronted by the Hokage, who sealed me into this kit. So you did have reasons other than just wanting a bloodbath, Kakashi said, more to himself than the fox. I could only stay on the defensive for so long. Kakashi nodded. Now that I know the story, I understand, Kakashi said, bringing his forehead protector back down. The kid will be out of his drunken stupor soon, thanks to my healing powers, Kyuubi said, and Kakashi nodded, still wary of the kitsune. So then, Naruto knows. Kakashi said. Kyuubi Naruto gave him a look that let an unspoken, duh, hang in the air. How long has he known? Kakashi asked seriously. Since he was 12, but I can't exactly say that, the kitsune thought. Since he was, 4. Kakashi's eye widened in surprise. The boy knew all this time. And yet he still, his voice trailed off. How did he find out? Shit. Damn, the kid's better at thinking up lies. Well, he fell asleep during a meditation thing he was doing, trying to open his chakra paths, and when he fell asleep he was brought to me, the kitsune said, shifty-eyed. Naruto will have to come with me to the Hokage when we get back. Kyuubi Naruto nodded. Naruto is sobering up a little. Kakashi nodded. Kyuubi Naruto closed his eyes, and when they reopened they were once again pure blue. I now have a hangover. Perfect, Naruto said, holding his head. He looked up at a somewhat startled Kakashi. Naruto blinked. I can explain. Or pay for whatever I broke. Naruto offered. Kakashi shook his head. It's not that. When you found out about the Kyuubi, why didn't you tell anyone that you knew? Naruto hung his head as if in shame. Kyuubi. What did you tell him so I can add to it and not have two different stories? You first met me when you were 4 during a mediation exercise when you fell asleep. I didn't want it to spread. After I woke up I felt relieved. I finally knew why everyone hated me, yet I didn't want anyone else to hate me. Kakashi nodded. After we get back to Konoha we will have to tell the Hokage, Kakashi said calmly. Naruto nodded. Now, let's go back to the others. Back on the bridge, Sakura was hopelessly trying to get Sasuke to notice her by following him around like a lost puppy, and talking his ear off. Sasuke was getting annoyed and was actually hoping the blonde idiot would get back soon. Sasuke let out an aggravated sigh, hoping Sakura would leave and go do something else. Message not received. Sakura just kept talking. Finally he saw Kakashi and Naruto walking back. He sighed again only to hear laughter. He turned around to see foggy mist setting in over the bridge, limiting his vision. Kakashi and Naruto had run over and Kakashi was now in front of his students and the builder. HMMPH. So here we are, it's our rematch. Zabuza came out of the mist and stood close enough so his figure was made out in the fog. And this time I won't underestimate those brats. He yelled as Haku jumped behind Sasuke and Naruto. Sasuke immediately started attacking Haku, pushing him back deeper into the fog and away from Kakashi and Zabuza. Sakura. Protect Tazuna. Kakashi yelled as he started lifting his headband, showing his Sharingan. They then began to battle. Sasuke had gotten a few hits in on Haku, but Haku had the upper hand. You are quite good. However, what I'm about to do next will be the last thing you see, Haku said calmly as he brought his hands into a seal. Secret Jutsu. Crystal Ice Mirrors. Sasuke looked around as several rectangular blocks of ice rose up and had an image of Haku on each one. Hey Sasuke! Naruto yelled from the outer side of the ice. The next thing he knew Naruto was right in front of him, about 3 inches from his face. Look! I snuck in here to help you out. Naruto said happily. Idiot! Sasuke muttered. Don't worry, I'll be helpful. Naruto somewhat pouted. Now, while they're distracted, Haku thought as he threw a Senbon needle at Sasuke, hoping to hit his lower spine. However, at the exact moment the needle left Haku's hand Sasuke started to stand up. The needle then hit Sasuke square on the. Sasuke, feeling the pain, jumped forward, right into Naruto. The two friends met in an unfortunate, Experience. As the two broke apart, they began gagging, holding their throats. You son of a bitch. Naruto hollered. You jackass. Sasuke yelled back. Ick. I thought I escaped that misfortune when I just sat in a seat in class. Naruto thought, spitting. Best not tell anyone about it. Your wife might think you were cheating on her. The fox burst out laughing. Haku was finding it quite hard to stay calm and composed watching the whole scene. I can't believe you just kissed me. Naruto screamed. Haku couldn't take it anymore. The looks on their faces were getting to him. Naruto looked at a mirror. You're enjoying this, aren't you? You bastard. Haku couldn't help it. He was losing control of his mirrors. Naruto had walked back to Sasuke and was holding him by the front collar of his shirt. This never leaves the dome, Naruto said to Sasuke, who could only nod. Haku lost control of his mirrors completely. The images shattered and the real one fell from the one he was in, which was right above Naruto. Haku fell on Naruto, knocking him forward. Sasuke lost his balance and fell backwards. Naruto, after recovering from his shock, sat up on Sasuke. You gay bastard. Naruto and Sasuke both yelled. You kissed me again. Naruto screamed at the top of his lungs. Naruto turned to Haku, who was rolled up into a ball laughing. I swear to God I'll beat you to a bloody pulp for this. Naruto, Sasuke said, getting Naruto's attention. Naruto asked. Will you get the hell off of me? Sasuke yelled. Naruto then realized the position that he and Sasuke were in. Aagh. Naruto yelled as he stood up away from Sasuke. This gave Haku only more to laugh at. The two turned to him. Sasuke's anger kept rising. He could see red. Literally. Got some rope? Naruto asked through gritted teeth, taking notice that Sasuke's Sharingan was activated. Sasuke nodded and handed Naruto a long rope. You are going to get so much done to you. Naruto yelled as he started to tie the hunter nin up. Haku had stopped laughing but was in a stupor when Sasuke punched the nin in the head. Outside the icy dome, Kakashi, Tazuna, Zabuza and Sakura had turned their heads towards where Naruto and Sasuke had run off, and were listening ever since they had heard the first yell. They were all still until the yelling stopped. Kakashi looked at Zabuza. Should we check on them? Kakashi asked. Chidori. Kakashi screamed as he charged at Zabuza. Blood splattered as the Chidori hit. The light faded to reveal what Kakashi had hit. Zabuza's shoulder was bleeding heavily. You missed your target. Guess that eye of yours isn't as great as it seemed, Zabuza said, although strained, moving a kunai closer to his neck. The air around the two Jonin was thick with tension, anger, and, well, all around frustration, when, hey Kakashi-sensei. We tied up the perverted transvestite, is that alright? Well, at least it was. That brat always ruins the mood, Zabuza said, looking in the direction where he heard the kid's voice. Sasuke and Naruto came running out of the fog carrying a big bundle. Naruto had removed Haku's mask and loved the expression on Sasuke's face when he learned that Haku was in fact a guy. How could they defeat Haku? Zabuza said, quite startled. Oh, that's easy. Naruto started smiling like an idiot. We made him laugh himself out of the ice mirror. He said happily. Everyone but Sasuke, Naruto and Haku face faulted, although Haku snickered a little. Naruto blinked. You're still awake. I could have sworn you'd passed out from lack of air when you were having that fit back there, Naruto said, confused. No, I was quite awake. Haku replied. And you still let us do all that to you? Sasuke said, eyeing a bruise on Haku's cheek. Sakura suddenly screeched. What the hell were you three doing over there? The three blinked. What do you mean? Haku asked. Sakura's eye twitched. Never mind. Sasuke and Naruto brought Haku over and put him down beside Sakura, who looked extremely relieved. You were just beating him up. That's good, she said, more to herself. The others heard her but decided against asking. I have my reasons for letting you do what you did, Haku said in a monotone. Naruto looked at Haku sympathetically. I never did really learn why he ended up like that. Naruto thought, thinking back to his first childhood. I should probably stop Kakashi from hurting Zabuza too badly too, so he might be able to hold up against Getu's army. Then he sensed it. Off to the northern part of the bridge. Getu was there watching from in the fog. He was most likely there last time, the fox answered before Naruto could ask. Kakashi was so into his battle last time that he missed the aura, and back then we couldn't sense it unless it was a really big chakra source. Naruto thought excitedly. Perfect. With that thought in mind, Naruto ran off into the direction he felt the aura, leaving everyone very confused. If I can find some way to get him to spill his guts earlier than last time, Zabuza might have a chance. Naruto said happily as he raced to the source. Sure enough, he soon saw the shapes in the distance get clearer. He was soon in earshot. When he gets by that Kakashi, we swoop in and finish the injured guy off, someone said. That fool, did he really expect Getu to pay him? This was his plan from the start and he fell right into his trap. And soon he will be dead. Naruto recognized that particular voice as Getu. Naruto smiled. That was easier than I thought it would be, he said to himself, tapping a microphone that was hanging off his shirt collar. He had dropped the earpiece on Haku when he ran off. With any luck they heard it and Zabuza will. Naruto smiled even broader, seeing the fog lift. Then he laughed, seeing how far he had actually run in the fog. His team was only about 10 meters away from him. Getu looked smug and confident as he called out, well, you're not dead yet. But you must be injured quite a bit because the fog lifted. No matter, you will die here. Getu held up a cane, causing his lackeys to charge. Zabuza turned back for a second and Sasuke threw him a few kunai. He put one in his mouth, and had one in each hand. He charged, but unlike last time, he was only slightly injured. He hadn't yet lost the nerves in his arms, but they were both still badly injured, giving him limited ability with them. His arms hung loosely as he spun, kicked, and head-butted through all of the lackeys in his way to Getu. He eventually got to Getu and once again hit him over the edge of the bridge. However, this time, Zabuza did not fall over. This time he walked over to Haku, who was still tied up. Naruto went back to his team and was watching intently. Haku, Zabuza started. Haku looked up attentively. Yes, he asked. I want you to live your life the way you want to. Haku was taken aback at these words. But my life is yours. My only purpose is to serve you. Haku said, surprised. Then serve me by living the way that you want. Follow your own dream. Live your own life, Zabuza said, not looking at the boy the whole time. But, Haku looked confused. Don't be a tool to anyone anymore. I shall do the same. Zabuza then looked the boy in the eye. Goodbye. You shall be happier this way. I will visit. I promise, Zabuza said before disappearing in a swirl of mist. It seemed that only Naruto caught the last part and smiled softly. So what will you do now? Naruto asked. Tell you that some of Getu's men are still alive and coming this way. Haku asked confused. Well, that's a start of thinking on your own. Naruto said before he realized what exactly Haku said. You'd our meal ticket. Someone yelled from behind. Aw shit, Naruto mumbled. Sasuke saw an arrow fly over to the lackeys and looked to where it had been shot from. Inari was standing there with the whole village behind him. Kakashi had used a cloning jutsu and there were now 20 of him. Everyone watched as the lackeys seemed to get cold feet as they ran the other way, yelling, "Ack! We're outnumbered." Sakura cut Haku's ropes and he was now standing facing Naruto. "If you'd like you can come back to Konoha with us," Kakashi said. Haku nodded. "Yes, I would, like that." Naruto smiled. "Sorry about tying you up. But it's okay, we can be friends now." Idiot mode commence. The fox said as if he were piloting a fighter ship. "Friends? Yes. And I am also sorry for making you and your precious person," he started. But was cut off by two extremely loud shouts of, "That never leaves the ice dome." Haku blinked. But yeah, apology accepted," Naruto said. Inari by this time had led the villagers over to where they were standing. "You did it, Naruto." Inari yelled happily. "And you as well," Naruto smiled. Team 7 plus Haku were escorted by the village back to the bridge to see them off. They all waved their goodbyes. Inari cried out his happy tears as he made Naruto promise he would come back to visit. Team 7 went happily home on the newly named Great Naruto Bridge. Later that day, Team 7 plus Haku were still traveling, but they seemed to be taking less time to get back than they took to get there. It was also quiet. Maybe too quiet. Well, unless you count the occasional giggle coming from Haku and Kakashi, and the occasional swearing coming from Naruto, and the occasional death threats coming from Sasuke, and the sounds of a daydreaming preteen girl. Okay, so maybe it wasn't all that quiet. Soon they had gotten back to Konoha, snapping everyone out of the little worlds they were in and bringing them back to reality. Once back inside, Kakashi spoke up. "Naruto, Haku, could you two come with me to the Hokage?" And Sasuke, Sakura. The two looked up. "You're dismissed," he said lazily before ushering Haku and Naruto off to the Hokage Tower. They had only been walking for a few minutes when Haku began noticing the glares of the villagers. He shuddered slightly as lost memories from the past came up. Naruto noticed this and said solemnly, "Don't worry, they're throwing the glares at me, not you." Haku looked over at the blonde boy. "Why would they hate you like this?" Haku asked. "Perhaps he is like me." Haku thought to himself. "Something from my past that I had no control over," Naruto replied. Haku nodded in understanding. Kakashi smiled knowingly. "Those two will get along just fine." Soon they arrived at the Hokage Tower, where Kakashi went in to talk to the third first. Then Naruto went in to talk to the Hokage, repeating the same story he had told Kakashi earlier. He even managed to get his eyes to water just enough to the point where it looked realistic. The fox was giving him a fake Grammy Award for his wonderful performance. "So you fell asleep meditating, was brought to the Kyuubi's prison, and became friends with him," the Hokage repeated for the 5th time. Naruto nodded and sniffed. "I was just really scared about telling anyone. I didn't want to drive anyone else away," Naruto said. "And the winner of the Best Leading Actor award is Uzumaki Naruto," the fox said. "I couldn't have done it without years of practice." Thank you. Naruto thought back to the Kyuubi. "Okay, thank you Kakashi and Naruto. Now, who is the person who would like to come into the village?" Naruto was then ushered out of the Hokage's office and told to tell Haku to come in, and then he was to wait in the waiting room. After a few minutes Haku came out, but he had a leaf headband on instead of a mist one. "Well," Kakashi started, "the Hokage has decided to make Haku a genin. You are going to be the one showing him around," Kakashi said happily. Naruto nodded. "Where will he live?" Naruto said after a moment of thought. Kakashi's smile seemed to widen under the mask. "Well, as luck would have it, I really don't like his tone." Naruto thought. "There is an apartment room open, in the building where you currently reside." His visible eye starting to take on that familiar shape. Naruto blinked. "Since when?" "Right beside you." He looked as if he would burst out with laughter at any moment from the expression on Naruto's face. Naruto almost face-faulted. That's it. I thought I was going to be tethered to him or something. I hate when he does that. Outside he just nodded with a big smile, his eye twitching slightly. Haku walked over to him and smiled as well. I shall try to do my best as a Konoha shinobi, and as a friend. Naruto was told by Kakashi to take Haku out to get some things he would need for his new apartment. The Hokage was nice enough to give Haku some money. The first thing Haku had bought was a bed. Which leads us to the lesson for the day: no matter how much of a powerful shinobi you are, it still takes more than 2 people to get a damn bed into a door. Carrying it to the apartment was no problem, neither was getting the thing into the building through the double doors, and getting a 300-pound bed up the stairs. Oh no. But the door to Haku's apartment was smaller. Much smaller. God damn it. Get it in there. Naruto shouted, getting more frustrated by the minute. I can't push any harder without breaking it. Haku yelled, also getting angry at the inanimate object. I think it's almost through. Try a different angle. Naruto yelled. NNNN. NRG. GRAA. Gak. Now what? Naruto asked. Perhaps you could explain what you two were doing up here. Sakura said, twitching, as she walked up, Hinata beside her. Do you know how that sounded? Hinata said, louder than usual, well at least for her. Sakura looked over at the girl who was red-faced. Noticing all eyes on her, she deepened in color. Sorry, she stuttered, softer. Everyone face-faulted. Hey Hinata. Sakura. What are you doing here? Naruto asked, peeking out of the doorway. Well, I asked Kakashi where Haku went so I could help him get better settled in. He told me that this is where he was going to live. Here, Sakura said, handing Haku a plate of cookies. Thank you, he said, standing to take them. Heh. So, anyway Haku, where's the bedroom? Naruto asked, remembering the bed. 3 doors down the hall and to the left, Haku said miserably. We'll help you, Sakura said happily. I'll help too, Hinata stuttered, blushing. Okay, this is the last door. Naruto said tiredly. Hey, Hinata, Naruto asked. Why yes, Hinata replied. After we're done here, how about I cook us dinner? Naruto asked, making Hinata's face light up. Why yes, I'd like that. I mean, if it's not too much tea trouble, she replied, pushing her fingers together. Ah, he's sweet when he's not being annoying and bothering me. Sakura thought as she began to push. Naruto went on the other side and began to pull. There was a pop outside the apartment, though no one heard it. A certain silver-haired Junin had poofed in for a visit. Hold it Sakura. Stop for a minute. Okay move, no. You gotta push it in from there, Naruto said as Kakashi opened the door. Well, I could get it in if you would come over here and put some muscle into it. Sakura replied. Maybe we should all push it in together. Hinata suggested. Kakashi at this time was looking at them almost disappointedly. You know, Kakashi started, catching the 4's attention. Kakashi smiled underneath his mask. Did you push that thing through all the other doors? Everyone nodded. Kakashi smirked under the mask. That thing can fold in half, you know. What? Sakura and Naruto yelled at the top of their lungs. Kakashi walked over to the bed and moved what was thought to be a decoration on either side, then, pushing the middle, made the bed fold in half. Want me to help get the rest of your things? Kakashi asked, seeming to get happier at the fact that everyone was glaring at him. Didn't I ever teach you to look underneath the underneath? He asked, turning his eye into you. After a bit more glaring Kakashi, Haku and Sakura went off to find other necessities for Haku. Naruto was left with Hinata, Not that he minded, of course. Naruto brought Hinata next door into his apartment. That fact made her spawn a new type of tomato on her face. How's seasoned chicken and rice sound? Naruto asked after a moment of searching through his cupboards. She nodded and began playing with her fingers and pursing her lips. Maybe he likes me. Maybe he really likes me. And more thoughts similar to that were going through her head. When the meal was done, they began to eat, Hinata all the while trying to refrain from doing what she had done last time he cooked for her, in the process making faces that Naruto couldn't help but smile at. You know, Naruto started, causing Hinata to jump in surprise. You should really let loose once in a while. Dig in, Naruto said as he began to shovel food in his mouth like he hadn't eaten in a week. Hinata blinked. Okay, all or nothing, she thought as she brought the plate up to her mouth and began eating as fast as Naruto. Wow, I've always wanted to do that, Hinata thought as she brought the plate down. She looked over at Naruto, who was grinning. This has always caused Hinata to blush. Now that's the girl I love, Naruto said happily. Hinata blinked. Low love, she managed to stammer out. He loves me, was her last thought before she passed out. Naruto looked dumbfounded. Well, that was unexpected, he said to himself. Oh well, at least she ate first. Naruto then went on to clean the plates. When he was done, he looked out the window and realized how late it was. He smiled softly as he picked up the unconscious Hinata and placed her gently on the couch. He went and got a blanket for her and covered her up. He then went and found a piece of paper and wrote her a note, telling her that if she woke up and went to leave, she could wake him up if she wanted. Kyuubi, if